day after and a little bit of the morning after that, we are live. Pew, pew. That's the air horn of going live, as you know.
Oh, I should post.
Sorry,
Okay.
let me mute that
Oh,
tab.
yes, I should.
Yeah.
Okay,
There we go.
so we will.
Kara,
Yeah.
bless you for going back and listening to our old episodes. I can't do it because I can't stand the sound of my own voice.
I understand. I had to get really much more okay with the sound of my voice once I started doing BookTube and listening to it a lot, because I used to hate the way I sounded. I thought I sounded like the most obnoxious chipmunk person in the world.
Oh my god,
Not
no,
at
you have a
all.
great voice.
Thank you. I have accepted my voice and now I like it, but it was not without a struggle, and so I totally understand. Yeah, I've watched a little bit of our live shows back before, and it is so fun.
I have too. I rewatched some of our last one and also a little bit of the Three Musketeers one. Just because, what a time! What a time that was.
There was a lot to talk about with that book, and almost none of it was positive.
I know.
Ooh. Yeah, but I have a feeling today is going to be another potentially contentious one. I don't know.
There's a lot to say.
Also, you can tell from my book where I started switching to the audiobook. I'm like, panic, and then I read the last 40 pages.
In English teacher terms, there's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot to unpack here, that's for sure. Okay, it's 5:02. I always forget to change the comment viewing. There's Helen. Hi, Helen. I'll do our spiel of trigger warnings just so everyone is prepared in that sense. I personally didn't prepare a lot of questions that are involving those topics, but they may come up naturally as they are things that are present in this novel. Because, woo-wee, what a novel it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, some sensitive things that may come up, potentially, would be violence, rape, suicide, racial slurs, grief, human trafficking, abuse, murder, attempted abortion. Oh, yeah, I really forgot about that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was a visceral one. Child neglect, pedophilia, loss of a child, and references to alcoholism. So obviously, a lot of sensitive things. If that's triggering for anybody, please take care of yourself. Obviously, we love conversations, but it's more important to be in a good state of mind. So feel free to excuse yourself at any time. We will not be offended. And like I said, I don't intentionally plan on talking about some of those things, but they may come up. So I guess let's just start to dive in. We read East of Eden by John Steinbeck and Zooey Mama. I love our matching editions. Okay, where to begin? So I made a ton of questions, but they are definitely not in any particular order. Like, they're more of chronological of these thoughts as they popped up, but they are not necessarily like in the beginning of the novel and in the end, and da 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 da. So I guess let's start, instead of going through a full character rundown because we have such a big cast in this book.
Yeah.
Let's do a basic favorite character and least favorite character from each of us. So you both look so pensive immediately, which I love to see. Kara, let's start with you. I'm so curious.
Okay. So my least favorite is, unsurprisingly, Kathy/Kate.
I can't believe it. What?
Yeah, I know. My least favorite parts of the book were basically her parts. There were far too many of them. I just think some odd choices were made with her character too. But I think my favorite... Okay, I don't want to do a tie because that's cheating. But, okay, I'm going to semi-cheat. Most surprising character that I ended up loving was probably Abra, because I was so impressed at how well developed she ended up being when she did not seem that way at the beginning. But I think my favorite character was probably Olive, Like, we didn't get
Aw.
to see that much of her, but what a badass.
I
I love
love Olive.
Yeah, so probably.
Also, wait, can we take a poll right now? Is that how you pronounce her name?
That's how I was
I was
saying.
thinking freaking abracadabra, so I kept calling her Abra.
That's how they pronounce it in the audiobook.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
abracabacon.
And I've never seen the movie, so I'm like, I don't know. But the worst name, I'm so sorry. But she did surprise me as well. I agree with you on that. All right. Yeah, Taylor, what are your thoughts?
So I will also say Kathy for least favorite character, but also like kind of unintentionally the funniest to me. And we can get into that later. But I think a close runner-up would actually be Aaron. He
Ooh.
stressed me out. But my favorite character, I think it's, sorry, I'm going to cheat again. It's probably a tie between Sam Hamilton and Lee.
They were great.
I love them both.
Their backs must hurt from carrying this book.
Yes, yes.
The only character with a brain in this whole novel.
You guys, can I tell you something that shook me to my core? The day that I finished, I was like, okay, now I can look up the movie because I'm curious. I didn't actually watch it like I did with the last one. The movie of East of Eden cut out Lee's character. How does it even exist?
How does anything get done?
Like, there's no plot without him. His heart is gone.
Wow.
So, anyways,
How
that
do you
shook me
do
to my.
that?
That's
what I'm
wild.
saying. I can't believe it. Helen said her favorite is Cal, and of course, least favorite is Kathy. And actually, that is mine as well. Cal and Lee are probably tied for me.
Yeah.
Lee, I think I love the most, but I think Cal's just really an interesting character. Also, it bothers me that his nickname is Cal. It's like your name isn't pronounced that way.
Julia,
Your nickname should be Kale, like
This bugs
leafy
me.
green.
This whole time, I'm like, I'm not calling you Kale. I'm like, this is so dumb.
Like, it's
Sorry,
silly.
I got very upset about that, so I was relieved that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also stupid that Aaron's like, 2 A's is too fancy. Just 1 A for me. Like, okay, whatever.
It made no sense. Yeah.
And before we dive into anything else, I just wanted to say, because I did post about this on Instagram, my FabFitFun box came today and I got a cup in it. I didn't get to pick my stuff. It came before I got to do that. And I was like, what's in this box? And it was a really goofy cup. So I was like, I guess we're using this to hydrate today. So anyone who saw that on Instagram, it's a cactus cup, which felt appropriate for California.
I love that.
Wow.
This is our guest appearance in this book club meeting.
A statement piece.
Yeah. Right. Off topic. Whoa, wait, Jennifer Lawrence as Kathy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So to be fair, the production has been in development since 2013 or 2014. So like, I don't even know if that's ever going to come to fruition. But
That's
I do think it's an
really
interesting idea.
Maybe by the time they make it, she'll be old enough to play her.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. Oh my gosh, that's really interesting. Okay, so I think, actually, you know what? Since Taylor, you brought up both of them, let's talk about Lee and Samuel, because one of the notes that I jotted down was like their first initial conversation, which I was like, this is fascinating, where Lee is like talking about like living up to all these stereotypes, and Samuel is just being this intelligent, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, just like overall interesting dude. And I don't know, that dynamic and those two really fascinate me.
Yeah. Their friendship, I think, is amazing. And also, it did sort of like switch my expectations of Lee. Like, I'm not sure if John Steinbeck is fully qualified to discuss, blending in to America when you are always going to be seen as like a foreigner in the country that you were born in. but it was a nice change from what I thought they were going to do with Lee.
Yes. He subverted my expectations big time. I was like, oh, great. Here, you gave us one non-white character, and he talks with a stereotypical accent. And, like, you know, not that there's anything wrong with having an accent or wearing traditional clothing or any of this, or, you know, like having a job in serving people. Like, all of those things are fine. But just the packaging of it felt really icky. And then to have something beyond that was like, oh, okay, wait. This is interesting.
Yeah. I do wish that they hadn't written out the phonetic accent. They could have just said, he said in a like Chinese accent, and I feel like people can fill in the blanks there.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know how accurate that accent was.
Right,
I was going to go with no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had like a very similar experience. Like the first time Lee's on page and speaking, I was like, oh God, like, is this what we're doing? But then pretty soon after that, he kind of like flips the script a little bit. And I was like, this is actually very interesting. And props to you, John Steinbeck. Like, I mean, similarly to you, Taylor, it's like, I don't know that you are like the most effective person to tell this story, but you are trying. Like,
yeah.
And he ended up being a fantastic character, which is also nice. Like, that he wasn't just like an interesting exploration of a concept. It was like he, as we said, he carried this book. Like,
right. And like you could easily fall into the trap of like, oh, he like works for the family, so they're like relying on him and he's like doing all their emotional labor and stuff. But I do think like just with his personality and his heart, like Lee is a character who has such depth. And I feel like every scene that he's in, I'm like, okay, thanks. I want to cry. Like you're saying all the nicest things. Oh yeah, don't let me forget to do favorite quotes later because I don't think I made a note for that. I'm going to make that right now because I don't know about you guys, but this might be the book that we've read. Of all the books we've read, I think this is the one that I took down the most quotes from. There were a lot of great lines.
I think, oh wait, I'm doing this backwards, but I don't usually tab books, but obviously I did for this one. And all of the like kind of dark, like brownish color, those are all favorite lines, which I am not really a quote person. I always want to be, but I'm lazy. And the fact that I was actually motivated to mark down so many is pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Sipping and reading. Okay, let's, I guess, dive into probably the biggest theme of the book. We're going to get real literary here and talk about brotherhood and contention and the biblical, not even allegory, it's just straight up in the book. They're like, oh yeah, in case you were missing it, here's Cain and Abel, and here's Charles and Adam, and here's Cal and Aaron. We're really going to spell it out for you.
Yeah.
But I loved it at the same time because I was like, oh good, I definitely know what's going on.
I was so mad at that during the scene where they're finally naming the babies and they spent like 4.5 pages on the Cain and Abel story. And I think we talked about this on Twitter, Julia. I was like, I swear to God, if you name these kids after Cain and Abel when your family is already so screwed up, like, you bring this on yourself.
That's just a recipe for disaster.
It really, yeah.
Yeah, imagine almost being murdered by your brother and then considering naming your twin sons Cain and Abel.
Honestly, it's the same thinking behind Hannibal.
It really is. But sorry, this again, I have a lot of thoughts. I don't always have a lot of questions. It's a lot of me saying, let's unpack that. But yeah, I guess let's talk about the brothers because I'm surprised. I felt in the beginning of the novel, I thought Charles was going to have a much bigger role overall, but we kind of lost sight of him pretty quickly. But then I guess he still kind of comes back around in his will later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and he's the father of the two.
And there's that. And there's that.
Yeah. Is it confirmed that he's the father, or is it like we're never supposed to know?
I think it's like strongly implied. I don't know if they ever actually like
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
But...
I think there was one point where I think Kathy was it Kathy and Adam when they were actually talking together.
Yeah.
But she was like, "Well, think about it, dummy," and he's like,
Yeah.
That could be. I do remember drinking that tea that put me to sleep.
Oh, Kathy.
Yeah, what a character.
Adam
Don't worry, we're getting to her next.
Awesome.
What was your original question, Julia?
I guess let's talk about brotherhood and the Bible and all of that.
Okay.
Is that a question?
I do feel like a lot of the problems from between both sets of brothers stem from like outside forces. A lot of the contention rarely happens with the brothers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of that resentment is bred from like the fathers treating one brother better than the other, or society treating one brother better than the other. You know, one brother, you know, gets the girl, the other one doesn't, and so on and so forth. But like with both sets of brothers, they each deeply love each other. It's just other things are tearing them apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Word.
I found it very frustrating that I keep wanting to say Aaron, but Adam, he did the exact thing to his kids that his dad did to him and his brother, even after seeing what it did to their family. And I feel like the book is kind of one of the things that strikes me as being about is like the repetition of mistakes. And it's not all bad. Like it's not all depressing about that, but it did get very frustrating sometimes because like we spend so long with these characters and we see the consequences of their actions, and then it's like, what if I do the exact same thing? What if something different happens? And it's like, it won't. Yeah, I also thought Charles was going to be a much bigger part of the book. Like, I went into the novel knowing very little about the plot. Like, I knew it was like a great sweeping epic that people said is like really intense and kind of sad. So I was like very nervous for a lot of it because it felt like not a lot of sad things were happening. And then it's like bang, bang, bang right after another. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really know like what the plot setup was going to be. So I was wondering, I'm like, is Charles gonna murder Adam right here?
Yeah.
Like, is that what's gonna happen? Like,
Yeah, you saying that. So go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and then like Adam thinks about it later. He's like, yeah, that was weird. That time my brother tried to kill me.
I feel like people either take bad news too seriously or not seriously enough. Like, I don't know.
If proportion is just like,
if one of my siblings set out to hunt me with a hatchet, I don't know if I would ever let that go.
Yeah. That'd be pretty strong in my mind, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the way you just said that, Kara, totally made me realize that I just skipped introductions. I was like, forget it. You guys know who we are and you know what this book is. Like, I forgot to even ask. So just to confirm, this was all not our first time reading Steinbeck, but this was collectively all of our first time reading East of Eden, right?
Yeah.
This was not a reread for anyone. Okay. Great. Just solidifying it. And I did want to point out, because Helen in the comments, I forgot I can show it, mentioned that beautiful tidbit.
Yeah.
Which again was really on the nose, but I was like, I like it though.
Yeah. I found it odd that nobody commented on it though. I'm like, symbolically this is very obvious. And even talking about Cain and Abel, and nobody brings up the fact that they literally had the mark of Cain on their forehead. Like,
Oh, and Mary Margaret, glad you brought this up, because this is gonna come up later in another conversation point I want to bring. But although I kept saying to myself as I was reading this, I don't know if this is like generational trauma as much as it is just generational drama. You know, it's like it's just like are so caught up in these things, and I'm like, just live your life, be different than that. You know, I don't know.
To that point of generational trauma, I know we're going to get back around to it, but it does also, like, a lot of this book reminded me about our discussion about Wuthering Heights, about how one generation.
Yeah.
Okay, are we going to get to that? Because I didn't.
We can talk about it right now, because I was going to say.
Julia's like so excited.
I love it. No, I was going to say, if you were to thematically compare this book to any of our previous book club picks, which would it be and why? So go for it.
Well, there's Wuthering Heights, and I feel like we got into a discussion during that live show about how the effects of one generation are sort of bleed through to the next generation, and how there's a lot of choice around, do we decide to relive this trauma, or do we move on and break away from the chain of drama, for lack of a better term. So, yeah, a lot of this book reminded me of like a lot of the similar themes that persist through Wuthering Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And my other thought in terms of that question was more, I guess not thematically, but just in terms of like a could have been done better but pleasant surprise, both this novel and The Three Musketeers having a female main villain. I'm like, what kind of classics are these where they're like, and look, this female character is really prominent. She's going to be evil and you're going to hate her because she's a woman. But I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Definitely do not stand Kathy, though, for the record. I am still a big, oh my God, why can't I think of her name? It's not even a name. Yeah, Milady, because it's a title. Still a big Milady fan, not a Kathy fan in the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and Helen said she also thought it was weird the random part where Adam just disappeared for many years and then returned when he ran out of money. Very prodigal son. Yeah.
Which Charles remembered. He's like, not to bring it up, but you owe me for that money I saved your life with years ago. And then Adam's like, yeah, I'll pay you back. He's like, no, it's not a big deal. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. And it's like,
so
did though.
Yeah. And yeah, because there was the one point where Cal was in jail for the night and Adam bailed him out and he's like, don't worry, I was in jail before. And I was like, you were? Oh yeah, you were. Like, I forgot it happened because it was such a weird part of the book.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like all over the place with these. Okay. Do we have anything else we wanted to say about Cain and Abel, or are we good there?
I think it's
all I'll say is I do like how the fathers are both God in both of these scenarios. And I don't know, I love the idea of looking up to your father as God and him having that like power to sort of, shower you with endless love or just reject you.
Yeah. Buckle up for my favorite quote, because that's the one. Okay, I'm nervous to open this can of worms. Let's talk about Kathy. I also put a quote with a page number, and I'm trying to remember why. So I'm going to look that up while anyone takes us away. Taylor, you want to say anything about Kathy?
Woo, there is so much to say about Kathy. One, I get the feeling that John Steinbeck has weird feelings about women.
Oh yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. So Kathy is, women are just manipulative. They use their looks. They love tricking men. Yeah, the whole like Kathy is super promiscuous, but we're not even going to talk about all the men who will sleep with her. You know what I mean? Like the men are doing the same thing, but Kathy's taking all of the burden. So the writing around her, I'm not a fan of. Kathy herself is just so unhinged that it wrapped back around to me into being almost comical. Like the part where she was giving birth and she just bit Sam Hamilton's hand.
Like, why did you do that?
Like some sort of dog. And he's like, I think something's wrong with her.
This woman might be evil. She just bit my hand.
And yeah, it honestly just wild. And I think I was just kind of enjoying her chapters up until she got to the brothel and started like preying on Faye, which, to be fair, Faye, if you put someone in your will, don't tell them that you have no surviving relatives who will come looking for you if you're dead.
Yeah. Just best practices. Like,
I thought the Faye chapters with her were really interesting. It was after when Faye was dead, I'm like, I'm over the brothel now. Like, I get it. You're here. You're the madam, whatever. But,
so, not a Kathy fan, but Kara, I don't know if you have anything to say about Kathy.
Yeah, I also was not a fan of her. And I definitely disliked her even more than Milady. Because the thing about Milady, which we talked about for Three Musketeers, is she at least has reasons for doing what she's doing. Like, she definitely takes out her vengeance on people who had nothing to do with what happened to her, but primarily I think her motivations are like a direct result of the abuse that she suffered, which I think is a more reasonable explanation. Kathy was just like nuts, like, and I could not, like, every time the narrator would like reintroduce her to us, he would talk about how like it's like some people just are missing feelings, and like he would go on, and I'm like, I can't figure out if you're trying to say that this isn't really her fault then, or like why do you keep bringing up this like quasi psychology stuff?
Mhm.
And like the thing about I almost said Milady again, a Freudian slip. They're very similar in my mind. But the thing too about Kathy is, again, I feel like very similar to the way that Alexander Dumas wrote women, or wrote his female villain, in that like Steinbeck creates this character and he's like, look at this horrifying human being who happens to be a woman. Isn't she awful? And I'm reading it and I'm like, yes, she's awful. And he's like, aren't all women awful? And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Like, yeah, it just felt very odd, which like was such a contrast with some of the other female characters in the book, because he clearly can write great women when he gives a shit. And like I did not like Kathy's chapters. I did not realize she was going to be such an important part of the book, and I just got very tired of her like manipulating people and murdering people.
Mhm.
I also hated the way too, like the double standard there, where like Taylor, like you said, men are going to these prostitutes, but the only ones that were like judging for it are the prostitutes. Like, interesting choice. Like I think we talked in our group chat, it's like they talk about going to the brothels like it's the grocery store, like it's so normal. And there was that part that made me really mad where like the narrator is like, yeah, every once in a while people in the town get mad about human trafficking, and maybe that's kind of part of it, but really stupid women and lazy women become prostitutes, and that's all you need to know. And I'm like, excuse you, sir. And then what was, sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
No, it's, I was just agreeing with you, sorry.
Yeah. And then what was the other thing I was gonna go? I want to get all my complaining about Kathy out as early as possible.
There'll be many opportunities, don't worry.
Yeah. And then I thought it was absolutely disgusting, like early on in her chapters, where a teacher was preying on her, and the book describes it as like, and then she ruined a man with her sexy teenage vagina. Like, it was just like super disturbing. And yeah, like, I mean, we talk every time, it's like, we know going into classics they're not going to be like this progressive or, you know, modern ideas, but like there were still some things where I'm like, this crosses the line even for like an old book written by a man. Like, this was
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like it's also different from like the Three Musketeers, which was published in like what, the 1700s, 1800s,
Yeah.
and
20th century?
yeah, and 1952 was when this was published. So
that's even
like,
later than I thought. I should have given it less credit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And big agree on this.
Yes.
Like, I had a physical body reaction. I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't need to get into that. But I found the quote that I had put in my notes, which I think kind of ties back, Kara, to what you were talking about us like not really understanding Kathy's motivations. And this is from chapter 17. And it says, when I said Kathy was a monster, it seemed to me that it was so. Now I have bent close with a glass over the small print and reread the footnotes, and I wonder if it was true. The trouble is that since we cannot know what she wanted, we will never know whether or not she got it. If rather than running towards something, she ran away from something, we can't know whether she escaped. Who knows but that she tried to tell someone or everyone, reading, what she was like and could not for lack of a common language. Her life may have been her language, formal, developed, indecipherable. It is easy to say she was bad, but there is little meaning unless we know why. And I feel like we don't know why. And he's like, she's just bad.
She's
Who
just
knows?
quirky.
Women, they're so quirky. Sometimes they murder you, sometimes they don't.
I'm not like other girls. I bite men's hands.
I'm not like other wives. I'll shoot you in the shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. But she didn't
No.
shoot to kill, which means that she might have cared about him a little bit. And I'm like, have you met this woman?
I think not. I think she just didn't want to go to jail for murder, because that would have been her most obvious murder of all.
Of all
Yes.
the murders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, like, this doesn't have as much to do with Kathy, but it does have to do with the brothels. Can we talk about how the names of the madams were Fart and Jen, the N-word, and Faye? None of those match.
Yes.
They all evoke very different emotions from me.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I just had to bring that up because it was just the weirdest thing to me.
Yes.
No, that's good. I think this leads right into my next bullet point, which just says Steinbeck versus women, and then a direct quote from the book. They were only a couple of whores after all.
Yep.
Why? Why did he do this? Like, we saw, like, with Olive, what an interesting, and Desi, what, like, interesting, cool, they're fairly well-rounded women he could write. Even, what's her name? Liza, who's Samuel's wife.
Oh, I love Liza.
Yes. She
Yeah.
ended up being so well developed and so great. And yeah.
There was a quote from her that, like, actually made me laugh out loud, and it reminded me of Angela from The Office. Samuel, now you stop this. I don't mind a joke in the evening sometimes, but it's not 11 o'clock. I like a joke in the evening sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, and Abra too, I think she definitely became more fleshed out as the novel went on. But then we just get like Kathy and all of the various prostitutes, and it's like, I just don't understand how you could write both of these.
Yeah. And like, the thing that always gets me, not just about Steinbeck, but about like men usually who shame female sex workers, is that like there wouldn't be a supply if like there wasn't a demand that was created.
Exactly.
So like, you know, they can be prostitutes, but someone has to hire their services. Not that there's anything wrong with sex work, but if he's going to be judgmental about this,
right?
And like, sorry, go ahead.
No, continue.
The thing that also annoyed me was like when Kathy had like pictures to blackmail the men who went to her brothel. Like, obviously blackmail is bad, but people were saying these are good men, family men.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well
she wouldn't have a picture of that man tied up and bound and gagged if he was a good family man, would he?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Also, the like kink shaming in this book, which I was like, it was just a weird like thing they added into Kathy's brothel.
It was weird because like they didn't tell you what was actually happening. So sometimes, like, not that I wanted detailed, but sometimes it was implying that it was like, oh, you don't even want to know, like, don't go. And sometimes we were talking about it, and I'm like, does he just like leather? I don't understand. And like the fact, okay, wasn't it Caleb? No, Aaron. I don't remember. One of them went to the brothel knowing their mom was in charge of it, and I'm like, this is like too. No. Like, we've got enough going on with the Cain and Abel parallels. We don't need Oedipus Rex in here, too. Let's just not do this.
There are 2 other brothels in town.
I know.
There are options.
Yeah. Yep. I think you guys said it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Okay, we already talked a little bit about the scars. So I don't know if you guys had any more to say about that. Like the marking of evil and blah, 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 the preserving mark. Okay, great. Oh, but I did think it was interesting. At the very, very end, Lee said to Adam, like when Caleb was asking for forgiveness, he's told him, your son is marked with guilt. And I was like, ah, nice.
Yeah.
I love a reoccurring theme, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, here, let's get real philosophical, shall we? Let's talk about Timshel, thou mayest, and good and evil and sin and free will. Again, not a question, just let's talk about it. Because that was, again, a very prominent reoccurring theme in the story. Thank you, Lee. He's always delivering.
He really is. I thought it was super interesting, and I think it was really like I think it kind of like colored the whole novel in a good way. Like it made, I don't know, like I think Steinbeck carried that through the book really well, even when the characters weren't literally sitting down and talking about it. And I just like really enjoyed the way this book explored free will. Like I really loved, once again, this is a Lee moment because he's the best. I really love when Lee confronts Caleb and he's like, I know what you're doing. He's like, you're deciding that you're doomed to this because your mother is who she is, and you're not. Like, I'm not letting you off the hook. You can be better than this. You say that you want to be better than this, so do it. And I really liked that. Like, I really liked that idea, which is another thing I liked from Wuthering Heights, that like exploring how families, like your ancestors' choices affect yours, but they don't have to define yours. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I also thought it was really cool that they focused specifically on the translation of that word, because that's like, translation is a big thing when you're talking about these like little words that can change the whole meaning of a sentence or like a parable or something. So yeah, I thought it was really well done. I like enjoy when I see free will explored in books, so I thought this did a good job with it.
Yeah. I agree with like everything you said, Kara. And like I said earlier about the whole like idea of breaking out of your family cycle, and how even though there are these outside forces preying upon you, like people treating Cal worse than they're treating Aaron, or not trusting Cal for some reason, or people knowing about his parentage and then treating him different, and how all of these outside forces sort of try to steer him to a darker path. And this whole idea of breaking free from what society has said that you are or will be is just like you said, Kara, like free will is just a really great topic to explore in books, especially one that has very strong biblical ties. And that's a lot of theological questions have to do with like, is there free will?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why Cal ended up being one of my favorite characters, because he's like that interesting midpoint between like, you know, am I my mother's son who, you know, because she's my mom, it makes me inherently bad? Or, you know, can I be good like my twin and like my dad, even though it's not technically his dad, but we don't have to worry about that. I mean, yeah, if we're being literal, they should both think they're bad because look at their parents. Ooey.
Yes.
But it was just, yeah, such a beautiful, interesting journey that he went on to, you know.
The scene that started to change my mind, because like I found Caleb very frustrating at first. I was like, are we doing this whole thing again? Like,
I know.
really? Like, which I know is like thematically that's part of the point, but yeah, like I was not a fan of his. And the scene that started changing my mind is the one where I don't remember what other stuff had happened in the book, but it's like at night and he's in bed and like something had just happened with Aaron, and I don't remember what. I remember the like aftermath, which is like he's just thinking about how he like hurts his brother when he doesn't even want to, but he's good at it, and he just like cries himself to sleep because he knows that like his dad doesn't love him as much. And I'm like, okay, you can stay. Like,
my baby boy.
Can we talk about the secondhand embarrassment when he tried to give his father the cash and the dad like yelled at him?
No, embarrassment. I was heartbroken.
I know.
I was like, I'm gonna die in this moment, because like Adam knows. He knows this exact thing happened with his own brother. Like, Adam, wake up. You were literally almost murdered because your brother was jealous that he didn't like, or that your father didn't like a gift he gave him as much as your gift. Yep. So like in this moment in which you're receiving a gift from your least favored son, wake up. I don't care if you don't want the money. Go donate it. Be like, thanks, son.
Yeah, and like it also, I think like was so interesting the reason he didn't accept it, because he made it sound like it's this ethical thing where like, you know, people don't have enough food, or like people are dying fighting for our country, and like here you are like essentially like speculation, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
and it's weird because like I can get why somebody would not want that money, but the way he said it and the way that like his other choices and actions did not match up with that, it felt very like holier than thou. And I think it was done really well, because like that is kind of what Adam does sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's like even like his behavior when he's on the draft board, and it's like he's refusing to, like, the guy he's working with is like, you could have made an argument for saying he couldn't serve, which would like, you know, save him, and Adam won't do it. So it's like he's got this very hard and fast like, I know what is the right thing to do, and anything that's not that is wrong. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Kathy told him, "You're too sugar sweet to live."
it's that line from Into the Woods where it's like, you're so nice, you're not good, you're not bad, you're just
Just
Like,
nice.
that's Adam. It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's
looks
true.
like I'm crying about it, but I'm just my nose.
I'm crying about it. So
I did cry in this book during the part with Desi. I was so excited about that. I was so upset. And that's the point where I got kind of like mad about the book, because I was like, this seems like tragedy as like just the garnish on top, you know? It's like like, did we have to spend this time with them so that like they weren't even important characters? Like, you could have taken this out of the book, but no, we have to have Desi die in this horrible way, and then her brother like
yeah. We're about to get to Hamilton's in a second. So
okay, cool.
But we can talk about him now if you want, and then I'll bring him up again. Because Taylor, you looked like you were ready to say something.
We can talk about the Hamiltons later.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, like, I tried to figure out how like autobiographical this book is, because John Steinbeck shows up as a character in this book.
This book is so weird.
Yeah. So when I think, like, if someone were to tell me before reading this book that John Steinbeck is a character, I thought he would be like a sort of Lee type, or, you know, some character that comes and like, you know, dispenses wisdom, but he's like a kid for most of this. So I want to know like how much of the Hamilton's life is based off of his maternal family's life, you know, like how real are Desi and Tom and Sam and so on.
Yeah, because I was Googling, I'm like, how is East of Eden semi-autobiographical? Like, give me the truth here. And I had a hard time figuring it out. I did learn that he apparently wrote it for his two sons. So I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And that like one of the working titles was My Valley, which I thought was really cute. But yeah, and I guess Olive is based off his mom, but I didn't get much more than that. Taylor, did you find anything interesting?
All I saw, because I looked it up on Wikipedia, because I was like, they have to have the answers. Yeah. All they said was that John Steinbeck shows up as a minor character, and the Hamiltons are based off of his like maternal family, but no other details, or like what is fiction and what is reality between the two. So I wish I knew, because that's a really interesting thing to include. And I also know that Olive's husband is Ernest Steinbeck, which is sort of so like up until we got to the part where John Steinbeck was an actual character. When the narrator referred to like himself, I just thought he was some sort of like omniscient narrator, or like a character telling the story, not like John Steinbeck recounting all of these stories.
Was his character like, I remember figuring out that he was in the book because of like we find out people's last names, but I don't remember who he was. Was he one of the kids, or like was he the narrator? I don't remember.
So he's the oh, sorry, go ahead, Julia.
No, you answer. You got
it. So he's the narrator, and he's also the son of Olive. So I think it's sort of like the older version of him, like looking back.
Okay. Yeah, because I knew it was one of Olive's kids, but I couldn't remember if that's who the John Steinbeck was, because I remember figuring that out in the book, but not like who it was. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I would read a whole book just about the Hamiltons. What a family.
Oh
I
my
loved
God.
them. Anytime I went to a Hamilton section, I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, this is good stuff.
Yeah, they were really interesting. Okay, well, shall we go from a serious note into a silly note? Because it's time for Kiss, Marry, Kill, East of Eden edition. We have 4 rounds of this.
Awesome.
3 are very serious, and 1 is really dumb.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with what I call the kind older men category, and that is Lee, Adam, and Samuel.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a toughie.
Okay, so
You want to
Kill-
go, Taylor?
I can go for at least one of them. Kill
We
Adam.
already know, yeah.
Yeah.
I think marry Samuel, kiss Lee. I think that's it.
I am also gonna kill Adam. You know what? I think my instinct was to marry Lee, and I do love him, but I think Samuel would be because we see what a good husband he is. So yeah, I would marry Samuel, kiss Lee. Adam, no contest, you're dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sadly, I'm also going to kill Adam, which breaks my heart because I said at the beginning of the novel, I was like, I just want to protect Adam. Like, I felt such a urge to be like, you're such a nice guy. I want to help you through this harsh life. But then the more the novel went on and he's not learning from things, that's when I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
sorry, unrelated, but it just made me think of one of the most emotional moments in this novel for me was when his stepmom accredited those little gifts to Charles instead of Adam, and I was like, she doesn't even know.
Oh,
Yeah.
It broke my heart.
oh, God.
Anyways, I'm gonna kill Adam after saying that. And then I'm going to do a switcheroo on you guys. I'm going to say kiss Samuel and marry Lee because I love that vision he has for living above his bookshop with his wife and family. I'm like, yes, I will. I do, Lee. Yes. Good life goals. Okay. Let's do a round of Hamiltons. Hamilton children, to be more specific. Tom, Will, and Desi.
Ooh.
I think. Okay, Will's the one who owned the dealership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill Will, not because I didn't like him, but just compared to the others, I'm gonna marry Desi because I loved her. I was so upset at her storyline. Honestly, that might be the thing that upset me the most in this book. Is her and Tom, what happened with them. And I'll kiss Tom then. He seemed nice.
I'm gonna go same as Kara. Kill Will. He was a little too much of a businessman for me.
Yeah, and he didn't even like what he did, which I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
At least let it be your passion.
Yeah.
Marry Desi. She seems like a lot of fun. And then kiss Tom because he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, it's he seemed nice.
Okay, I don't know if this is going to prove to be a pattern, but I'm going to do the same thing I did last time as you guys. I'm going to say kill Will, not because he offended me, but just out of the 3, he's my least favorite. I'm going to kiss Desi because she's just a fun-loving gal. R.I.P. And then marry Tom because a poet? What a romantic. I loved that. Once he started writing poetry, I was like, oh, this guy. Okay.
Whoa.
Interesting. And in my mind, for some reason, I was kind of conflating Tom with, what's his name? Miles Tuck from Tuck Everlasting, who I also just love a lot. Just this depressed brother. Depressed other brother trope. And I loved it. So, 10 out of 10. Would marry. Also R.I.P. Okay. Okay, now let's do the goofy round. This is so stupid. There's no right answer in this round. Kathy, Charles, and Doxology the horse. I couldn't think of another character.
Oh my god.
Like another bad character, so I just put in a horse.
You really made this hard.
This is
I
the
wanted a
awkward
challenge.
challenge round.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely wouldn't marry Kathy because we all know what happens to people who marry her.
Yeah.
I would say the thing is I don't want to marry her kiss a horse. Do you?
It can be a platonic kiss.
A kiss between friends.
A kiss on the nose.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's like a platonic kiss, then I will. No. Yeah. Okay. Kill Kathy. Marry Charles. Give Doxology a little kiss on the nose, and then I wash my mouth.
Yeah, I kill Kathy, no question. I really don't want to marry Charles, though.
No, I know.
Okay, you know what we're gonna do? It's gonna be one of those like little kid weddings where you pretend to marry your pet. I'll pretend to marry Doxology the horse. I'll kiss Charles because I can handle that, and Kathy's dead.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'd obviously kill Kathy. Yeah, give Doxology a nice little peck. And then marry Charles in the hopes that I can like Beauty and the Beast him and just kind of make him better.
Your physical reaction to that was like, marry Charles.
Sorry, does it look like I'm gonna vomit when I say that? And then, of course, I think we can all guess who's the final trio that I'm going to bring up. Cal, Aaron, and Abra. Which is probably the hardest round for me personally.
Yeah. I think, okay, Aaron is my least favorite of them, so I'm going to kill him. I don't dislike him, but he's just, it's like with Will. Like, just by the process of elimination. I'm sorry, man. And okay, Cal and Abra. I think I would marry Cal, maybe? Like, I don't know. I'm hoping his character development sticks at the end of the book. So assuming that's true, I think I would marry him and kiss Abra. I just want to be friends with Abra. She's like the best.
What a good egg.
So I think kill Aaron. He was also my least favorite of the trio. Also incredibly dramatic. I'm sorry. You find out your mom's a prostitute and you sign up for the military?
Yeah,
Okay.
0 to 60.
Yeah. So kill Aaron. I think marry Abra.
Whoever she is.
Her. And kiss Cal. Because I would like to hang out with Abra. And Cal I could hang out with, but like sometimes he can get a little too mopey, so I need a break.
I think also I'm like conflating a little bit my feelings about Henry Crawford's character arc into Cal. So I'm like, yes, I would marry Cal. Yes.
Yeah, the same person. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to say again, I don't dislike Aaron, but out of the three, I'd have to kill him. Sorry, Aaron. No disrespect. Kiss Abra and marry Cal. There's a soft spot in my heart for him that I just can't deny. So, seems like the right choice.
Also,
and Helen's agreeing.
And what? Sorry.
And Helen was agreeing with me in the comments. So, thanks for the validation.
While we're on the subject of Abra and Cal, can I say I was like weirdly into the idea of them ending up together? Like that worked for me.
Yeah.
I was down for that. And actually, when she and Aaron were still a thing for like a long time, like she and Caleb had only had like a couple of conversations and they were not at all romantic, but I'm like, am I weird? I'm getting vibes. Like
Yes.
But I was right.
I totally agree. And I will say, love this for me. One of my favorite tropes, I say this all the time, so people are probably sick of hearing it, but that's the best kind of love triangle, is one where each of the corners cares about the other people. Like, it can't just be Bella and Edward and Jacob who hate each other. That's boring. That's tired. there's no spice. But when the two opposing love interests care about each other, then it's like we've got a different dimension to this, and it becomes really interesting. But
That's
I
why
totally
recommended
agree.
Cyrano de Bergerac to you.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
Cyrano de Bergerac.
I love that you love it too, Taylor. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. And I
What did you
love
say?
that.
I just totally interrupted you, Julia. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I totally saw that too, because like I feel all the times we got to see Aaron and Abra as a couple, they were so like bland and one-dimensional. It was like they literally like gave themselves these roles and they're like, let's act it out. And I was like, or you could like actually get to know each other and like each other. Like this is weird. And again, Helen said this way earlier in the chat, and she also sent a message to me as we were all reading. But this book should be called Mommy Issues, because zoo-wee. Wow, everyone's got mommy issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene where like Abra and Aaron were like, they were acting out getting married, and then they were playing like mom and son, and I was like, oh, Aaron, or you could just go to therapy.
Pick a lane and stay in it. You can't be both.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a time. Did I have anything else big? I think it's time for favorite quotes.
Ooh.
Get your favorite quotes out, gals. It's time. I don't know. I wish we had like a little theme song for when it was time for quotes, you know?
I have like several this time, so I'm making up for all those times when I was like, I'm just picking a scene. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, no, this book has beautiful passages in it.
I loved the writing in this, and I have not liked his writing in the other three things I've read. I feel like this is actually different, but
yeah.
Wait, okay, I'm going to share not my actual favorite quote first. I'll let you guys do yours, but I do want to share a quote that I am going to use for the rest of my life. I believe this was Cal saying this about Aaron, and I'm going to say this about half of my favorite characters. Sometimes I think he's stupid, but I like him. Yeah, me too, buddy.
This is like a runner-up for mine. It's like I couldn't pick a quote to pull out, so I just like marked the whole page and I decided not to share. But it's like after Yuna died, and the book is talking about how it broke Samuel and Liza, and like Liza kept going, and that didn't mean she loved her kid less. I'm like, that made me very emotional. It's talking about how for Samuel, like, is like he never really believed death was a thing, and then it happened to somebody he loves and he was angry and he didn't know what to do. And Liza, it's like she just kept on, and that doesn't mean it like reminded me of my grandma a lot too, like when she lost her kids, and like it just I just thought that was like a really beautiful passage, and I'm like, Steinbeck, why can't you bring this energy all the time? I just thought that was really beautiful, and especially the fact that like he really emphasized several times that being able to function does not mean you love somebody less. It was like she still took care of people because that's what she did, and like I loved that. But my actual quotes, it's about Olive, who I adore. If the Germans had known Olive and had been sensible, they would have gone out of their way not to anger her, but they didn't know, or they were stupid. When they killed Martin Hops, they lost the war, because that made my mother mad, and she took out after them. She had liked Martin Hops. He had never hurt anyone. When they killed him, Olive declared war on the German Empire. And then it like goes on about how she like cast about for a weapon and she knitted, but she didn't feel like that was good enough. She said this was all right, but it was not driving at the heart of the Kaiser. Olive wanted blood for the life of Martin Hops. She found her weapon in Liberty Bonds. She had never sold anything in her life beyond an occasional angel cake for the altar guild in the basement of the Episcopal Church, but she began to sell bonds by the bale. She brought ferocity to her work. I think she made people afraid not to buy them. And when they did buy from Olive, she gave them a sense of actual combat, of putting a bayonet in the stomach of Germany. What a queen. I love her.
I love Olive.
Yeah. That whole like section she had about her was amazing. And like going up in the airplane, I was like, ah!
Like, I would read an entire novel about Olive. I just like, and just like from the beginning when we're introduced to her and she's like really smart and she's good at school and she notices that all the school teachers end up settling and she's like, I'm not gonna do that. And I'm like, she's a woman with a plan. I love that.
Yeah.
Side note, I would totally steal all of the names of the Hamilton daughters. They all have great names for my future
Yeah.
children, that is. I love their names.
Yeah. And I have one more short quote that I'll share after you guys go.
Oh, you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
go for
Okay.
it. I'm going to
This
share
is like-
multiple too, I think.
Okay, great. This was like, we talked in our chat a little bit about like the setting, and like something I said when we were talking about it is like, I did not expect it to be so fulfilling to read a book that romanticized where I live. And I don't live anywhere near the Salinas Valley, but I do live in California, for people who don't know. And like, it was just really nice because it was like nice to see places and things that I know written about in a way that was like as loving as like the English countryside in a lot of classics, which I also love, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's like I didn't expect that to be as like moving as it was. So one of my favorite quotes from that part is he's talking about the flowers, and mixed with these were splashes of California poppies. These two are of a burning color, not orange, not gold, but if pure gold were liquid and could raise a cream, that golden cream might be like the color of the poppies. I
So
just think that's
pretty.
really pretty. Yeah, and like there's like around where I live, there's a few hills that do get poppies, and they're like really beautiful. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. His descriptions of like Salinas are A+.
Mhm.
So I also have two quotes. So one is near the end, and I believe it's from Lee because he has to have everything.
Yeah.
When you're a child, you're the center of everything. Everything happens for you. Other people, they're only ghosts furnished for you to talk to. But when you grow up, you take your place and you're your own size and shape. Things go out of you to others and come in from other people. It's worse, but it's much better too. Which I thought was just very well put and nice.
Mhm.
And then the last one is also near the end. And it's just a very simple quote. And it's sort of Abra talking about her relationship with Aaron, and Lee says, and now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. And I just really like that because I felt so bad that Abra at such a young age was being pressured to be this like perfect wife and perfect girlfriend and live up to Aaron's expectations. And
Yeah.
I love that she has sort of freed herself from that.
Yeah.
Agreed. Sorry, I'm just checking because I don't know who said one of these quotes that I wanted to share. And so I wanted to confirm because I took down the page number. Who is this? Lee. And then, oh, I think it's Lee. Great. We love Lee. One of the short little lines that I liked was from Lee, and he said, "All great and precious things are lonely." And I just thought that was so pretty. Like, gave me chills when I read that. I was like, ooh. But I think my actual favorite quote, I have so many that I love, was probably the first one I jotted down, which was literally on page 19. Like, it's right at the beginning of the book. And it comes back to what Taylor was saying earlier about like the dads as like a god figure. When a child first catches adults out, when it first walks into his grave little head that adults do not have divine intelligence, that their judgments are not always wise, their thinking true, their sentences just, his world falls into panic desolation. The gods are fallen and all safety gone. And there is one sure thing about the fall of gods. They do not fall a little. They crash and shatter or sink deeply into green muck. It is a tedious job to build them up again. They never quite shine. And the child's world is never quite whole again. It is an aching kind of growing. I love that passage so much.
So good.
Thank you. There's C.S. Lewis has like a similar line where he's talking about like the first time a child tells the truth but is not believed, and how like ever afterwards it's like you might apologize and they might forgive you, but it's like always going to hurt. It's that was a great passage, Julia.
Yeah.
That reminds me, because I skipped our introductions, we never shared our ratings of this book.
Oh
Ooh.
So let's just round table that real quick. Taylor, what did you give it?
So the entire time I was reading, I was oscillating between a sort of 3 and 4-star rating because it might sound like I didn't like this book, but I actually really, really enjoyed it. So I think I'm meeting in the middle and I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did overall really enjoy it. It's beautifully written and there are a lot of really interesting characters. I just feel like John Steinbeck could have cut out a good 100 or so pages from this book.
Maybe
Could have been
maybe
some
the
stronger
racist
editing.
pages.
Huh?
Maybe the racist pages.
Cut out the racist pages, the sexist pages, and I
Yeah.
think we're good to go.
Yeah.
Most of the
got it.
Kathy pages, but other than that,
Yeah.
I think 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did really like this book.
Yeah. I was also kind of torn. It's one of those like middle of the road books for me where it's not that I was neutral about it. I actually had very strong feelings, but it's like the things I liked, I really loved, and the things I didn't like, I really hated. So I think I'm at like a 3-star right now, but like the emotional connection and investment is like really strong with this book, which is something that can sometimes like bump up a rating for me. Yeah, so like right now I'm at I think like a 3 stars. I also like I read this so quickly and I was not expecting to.
Wow.
I remember Julia, you had like told us you're like you had worked it out and you're like if you read was it like 20 something pages,
21 pages a day.
yeah, it's like you'll be done before the end of the month. And I'm like, that's totally doable and reasonable. And so the first day I picked it up, I was like, I'm just going to read until I feel like stopping. And then tomorrow I can start like the planned reading. I read like 70 pages like, the
Wow.
first night because I was super into it. I loved the writing. I was just really like enjoying it. And then the next night, I was like, it'd be nice to get to like page 100. And I read another 70 pages. So yeah, I was not expecting that because like my other experience with Steinbeck's books have not been super positive. So this is definitely my favorite of his. Yeah, like I'm at like a 3-star now, but if it like lives in my feelings like this, it might get bumped up.
Love it. Yeah, I'm pretty similar. You guys know I work on an average system, so I never get
Mhm.
nice nice numbers. But I gave it 3.6, which is like 3.5. Again, because I loved the writing, I was really invested in the characters, but like some of the pacing and some of the plot was like, okay, you're bringing the score down a little bit right now.
Yeah.
But my just overall enjoyment of it was on the higher side, despite all of the crazy things.
Yeah.
But
I think it was an odd choice to like the ending felt very strange to me. Like it happened very quick and it's like
was
we
very
just end the book with a massive character death and a like semi forgiveness confrontation scene and like then the book's over like we're done and I'm like
very abrupt.
very abrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think I will watch the movie eventually. I think that's going to feel like very old Hollywood in that moment where he's like,
Yeah.
like that's going to feel appropriate there. But in the book, I was like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I just wanted more.
John Steinbeck drew everything out and he couldn't do it with this.
Yes. Or like I
Truly.
loved all of the scenes we got with Cal and Abra, like
Yes.
when they do their little like date.
Oh my God, the
Yeah.
picnic!
It was so cute, and I'm like, why can't we have more of them and
Yeah.
like get rid of some of these other stuff and actually end the book with like I don't know a normal time frame?
Yeah. Flash forward to Cal and Abra, and they're married, and they only have one son, and everything's fine. 'Cause there's
Yeah.
just one
Or how
son.
about a couple daughters for a change?
Yeah. And nobody is named with a C or A name.
Yeah, they have one son, and his name is Lee.
Yes.
Oh, super fast. When Lee and Abra like said that they regarded each other as father and daughter. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bring something else up, but I forgot to mention it, and that was one of my favorite
No.
parts in the book. I got so emotional.
I'm
I
glad you
loved
did.
it. Yeah. When he was talking about like if she was gonna come over for like Thanksgiving or something, and he was like, "I love her," and I'm like,
And I was like, okay, I did the same thing I did while reading The Secret History, which was like, I just pictured Lee not as old as he is, apparently. So for most of the book, I was like, he's like the same age as Adam, right? Like he's not that old. And then later he's like really old. So I was like, oh, okay, didn't know that. So at first when he said I love her, I was like, what do you mean you love her? And he was like, oh, like a father, great, I love this. Like
Yeah.
the suspicion went up high, and then it immediately was okay.
Yeah, I wondered about that too for a second.
Too, I was so
I was like, please be like a platonic or like
Don't make this weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lee, you're great. Don't make it weird. Like,
Yeah, because that's not something we have a lot of in this book. It's like everyone who's like, I love you, it's like in a very romantic sense. You know, whereas, I mean, Adam couldn't even say he loved his own father, you know, like,
Yeah.
just like, I guess I admired him.
yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that was really nice to have. Isn't it funny that Lee is a better and stronger father figure than like the most father literally
Than
character?
any of
Yeah.
the dads in this book.
Yeah.
Except Samuel.
Except
Samuel's
Samuel.
great too.
Yeah, Ty.
Samuel's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, there's something else I was going to say about Lee. What was it? I don't know what it was. As if I haven't been talking enough this whole time.
No, I was going to say, I'll just paint this gold and present it to Lee as the best character award. You did it, you won.
He really did. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was so afraid. He like, there's that scene where he opens a box or like, I don't know, something happens. But it's like the way it's described, I'm like, is he going to die? It's like he was like shocked and like, he had to sit down or something. I'm like, I swear to God, Lee, if you have a heart attack, I will not be able to handle it. And it was like something else. But yeah, that was a stressful moment.
I was also nervous Lee was gonna die. And then when he was going to leave the family to like open up his bookshop, I'm like, on one hand, I am happy that they have a character who's a person of color who has goals outside of serving the family.
Yeah.
But also, Lee, you can't leave them.
Yeah. We need you here. Please don't go.
And by them, I mean me. You can't leave me.
Yeah, leave the Trasks. They're fine. We need you.
Yeah.
We, the reader.
Time to make a Lee fan cam.
How though? Because we don't have him in the movie.
I know.
I'm going to watch it the whole time and just go, where's Lee? I wish Lee was here. Oh, imagine if Lee was in this scene.
Right. This would have been so much simpler if you just had Lee here.
Yeah.
Really quick, and then I'm going to let you wrap up. I'm sorry, Julia. But one thing I wanted to mention that I did not expect, I don't know, like I just pictured the time period of this book, I guess, completely differently, even though like a lot of it is very, not even rural, but like countryside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I did not anticipate that it was going to include World War I. I really liked, there's like a whole chapter that's only like a couple pages and it's just talking about the war. And that thing he says about like how people just had to get used to this constant fear all the time. And he says that like, you have to remember that nobody knew this war was going to end. And I just thought that was really a great line. That was really interesting because I think there is a tendency, because obviously we talk about history and we have end dates for things, but it's like you never think about the fact that like the people living through it are like, this could be the last war because it never ends, you know? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was super interesting and I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, honestly, that is really interesting and something that I don't even think about. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because I want to let Julia wrap up.
I love this. Keep it going.
But during, and this is sort of off topic, but it's going to wrap around to East of Eden.
Perfect.
So during my college graduation, one of the people speaking to the English department mentioned that people in my generation were children of war. And it's one of those things that you don't think about because, you know, I don't think about the fact that we've been at war most of the time that I've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think about the end date now, but when you think about wars like, oh, well, World War II only lasted like 4 or 5 years. And World War I lasted, what, 3 years?
Yeah, 3 to 4.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years.
For
like,
us, at least. It was longer for other countries.
But... Right.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, like, what's 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah. So just something I was thinking about that I hadn't really considered until I read that.
That is really interesting.
And I've been reading more about World War I recently, and I do think it's interesting that like it doesn't get talked about a lot here. And I read that some of the reason is because the primary histories that were coming out about it were by British authors who obviously they had been in the war years longer than us. So it was kind of understandable that when they wrote them, they didn't, I don't know, not that they downplayed the US's role, but they weren't so much talking about what it meant for us to, like, that we were still part of the war, if that makes sense. Like, because it really, like, I think it's starting to change now because of the centenary celebration a couple of years ago, but like we barely talked about World War One. Like, it's like, oh yeah, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, gloss right over, like moving on, you know? Like,
That's true.
so yeah, it was very interesting to read that. So like, even considering I have been reading more stuff about it, it was still something where I was like, I don't think about that. Like, I don't think about how people going through it were like, is this going to be the one that doesn't end? Like, is this going to be the one that like wipes countries off the map, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Scary.
Yep.
And very salient to living in pandemic life. Like,
Yes.
when will it end? I don't know.
Yeah.
Your guess
Yeah.
is as good as mine. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, you guys, thank you. This conversation was so interesting. It was everything I dreamed it would be and more. I was really excited to talk about this book. And I have to say, I don't know, I'm going to go back and like look at all our average scores, but I think so far I might have the best track record of picking books for us. I think we've given mine some good ratings.
Nice.
So, it's no big deal. But we'll see what we think of what I have Dorian Gray next. So, but however,
we also,
yeah.
sorry, Taylor, do you want to mention the book change? In case,
Yes,
sorry, Julia,
that's
you
what I
were
was
probably
gonna have her say. You read my mind.
Go ahead, Julia.
No, Taylor, take it away. What are we reading next month?
Okay, so originally we had decided on Beloved by Toni Morrison. However, after thinking about the current times we are in and the fact that March is my birth month and I don't want to think about depressing things during March, we are switching that from Toni Morrison's Beloved to Martin Luther King's Letter from a Birmingham Jail. And I looked online and I believe you can get it for free online. I think
Nice.
correct. If I'm able to find like a PDF copy or a link to a PDF copy, I can share it on the Twitter. But I'm sure you can also find like physical copies of it as well. So much
very
shorter,
short, right?
and much more uplifting, I think.
Yeah.
Like also a little bit sad, probably.
Right.
But
It's, I mean, if like I'm remembering I read it in high school, so it's been a while, but I remember it still deals with very serious topics, but the writing, it's not fiction for one thing, so you're not like, I don't know, it's not like a seeing bad things happen to characters. It's like he's talking about serious issues in a really beautiful language, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
As I remember.
That's so exciting. It's our first nonfiction pick. Did I say nonfiction?
non-fiction fic.
No, nonfiction fic.
And spoiler alert, we will not be playing Kiss, Marry, Kill.
Yeah.
Oh boy, can you imagine that one?
Yeah.
No. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining us. It's been a great time, and we will see you next month. Bye. Ending.